Stories for Our Daughters explores the tales of everyday women from the South Asian subcontinent who've been strong, unorthodox, and extraordinary in their own unique way. Be it for the bars they've raised, the battles they've survived, the ceilings they've shattered, or the courage they've inspired. These are women we encounter in our daily lives who, like many of us, straddled multiple geographies, distinct systems, and diverse cultures. And their compelling journeys are presented in their very own words. I'm Madhuri Baldwa Bhat, and this is Stories for Our Daughters. My guest today, Deepa Nandamudi, can be described in many ways: a trained social worker, a clinical therapist, writer, daughter, friend, sister, aunt, wife, and mother. But the words that come foremost to mind are warrior and survivor. Deepa was 28 years old and a new mom who had given birth 6 months prior when she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Her disease progressed rapidly and attacked the lower half of her body. Deepa needed a cane to walk, and her weekly injectable medications turned to daily. Over time, Deepa used a walker for support, and for the past 6 years, she's been getting around with a mobility scooter. Deepa went through 2 rounds of chemotherapy during this period, started IV infusions for treatment, and became an advocate and spokesperson for the Michigan chapter of the National MS Society. After her 45th birthday, Deepa was also diagnosed with Stage III Ovarian Cancer. She underwent 8.5 hours of surgery to remove the cancerous cells and for a complete hysterectomy, followed by chemotherapy. Deepa was in remission for almost a year when she learned that the cancer had returned. Deepa continues to undergo monthly chemo sessions for the last 2 years in Michigan with the support of her pediatrician husband Dave and her son Varun, who just started med school in Arkansas. In the words of Dave, her spirit and attitude are unparalleled, and that is what keeps her going. Deepa Nandamudi, welcome to the first season of Stories for Our Daughters.
Thanks, Madhuri. It's a pleasure to talk to you and through you to the wider community. And I hope that my story will help somebody else dealing with chronic illness. We just assume that people with chronic illness have been given a diagnosis and then, deal with this on a daily basis. But besides the chronic illnesses, we have the same trials and tribulations, and you just have an added layer of illness, forging ahead. So along with this, I still deal with the graying hair and, eyesight kind of weakening. And so those are parallel to the chronic illness too. So yeah, let's talk more.
So what form of, when we talk about fulminate MS, so what does that mean? What does that mean for you in everyday life?
So in the beginning, it was I would, get an attack and then recover from it with some residual weakness. And that residual weakness just started to get more and more pronounced. So in the beginning, I would just have some stiffness, muscle stiffness, which progressed to a cane and then a walker. And, now I'm in a scooter. And the way that I've described whenever somebody asks me about MS is I give this example to make it easier for people to understand, is that of a light bulb. We all know for a light bulb to light up, there's a wire, that goes in, and we have the wire is covered in a sheath. Now, when that sheath is exposed, let's say for whatever reason, wear and tear, or it gets cut, then the underneath wire is exposed and you'll have the light bulb flickering because it's not able to conduct the electricity very well. So the same way in our bodies, people affected with MS, the message from the brain that goes to your legs or to your hands is not able to conduct, and the message gets garbled from synapse to synapse, and so that's where the problem occurs. In my case, I've had lesions in the spinal cord, which is why the lower part of my body is affected. Had it been in the brain, then it would have been, some other areas that would have been affected. I'm a little bit fortunate that I have been given time to adjust, to go slowly from walking with a cane to, being in a wheelchair / scooter.
So Deepa, you've been diagnosed with MS. You're a new mother. You've just had your son 6 months ago, and of course, at that time, children are progressing so much, and your disease is also progressing. And it's hard to adjust to growing children, and then you're adjusting to this new disease. They are becoming more and more mobile, and you are becoming less and less mobile. And so how did you cope with that?
So I think my first rude awakening was right when I was diagnosed with MS. I didn't know what it was. When I was in the hospital and they were giving me steroids to treat it, I was still breastfeeding Varun, and I had to stop overnight. And that wasn't easy either for me or for him. Him, because he was not used to anything but breast milk, so he had to stop overnight. And me, because I had to stop, so which means I'm engorged and all of that goes along with it. They didn't bring Varun to the hospital for a week to see me, because both ways, right? He would want, if he would see me, he would want to feed, he wouldn't stop crying. And me on the other hand. So I would ask him, how is Varun doing? Oh, he's doing really well, when he wasn't. And it took him, 2 days of not drinking with a bottle till he was so hungry that he just grasped the bottle. Now, when I hear that story, that, I cringe every time when we talk about it. The only good thing was I was still, walking at that time. So it took me about 3 years of walking, so I was able to take care of him, at least for the first 3 years. It's only then that I progressed with walking with a cane. So my son now, actually, because if you think about your earliest memories, you probably are like 3 or 4 with it, you kind of have your earliest memories. So he has no memory of his mother walking without a cane. And for me, again, I realized that is when we were looking at old pictures one day, and I was showing him our wedding album, and I said, hey, look at these pictures. And he goes, none of these pictures you have a cane. And I just paused and looked at him and I said, what? And he goes, yeah, where's your cane? And I said, oh, I didn't have a cane then, so he, it took him a second to realize that, oh yeah, so there was a life for my mom without a cane. And then, he also has seen me go through it, the transitions have come in. Yeah, and I think that we have never hid anything from him. I think early on, Dave and me were very clear that we're going to be open as a family. We're not going to hide anything. Usually, especially in our culture, we tend to hide things like illnesses or death from children. We want to shield them. But we were very clear right from the get-go that we're not going to do anything, as much as he could understand. We've always brought him on board. And if he had questions, if he asked them, we always answered the best that we could. My favorite story of him when he was in kindergarten, uh, at the end of the year, they were going to the zoo. And he was so excited. He wanted to go see the lions. That was his big thing, that he wanted to go see the lions. And I was really struggling with that because I wanted to be there. I wanted to see him see the lions, but I couldn't, do that. And his teacher, um, one of the most wonderful teachers he's had, and she had him call me on her cell phone. And while he was talking to me, she snapped a picture of him, and then later on developed it and gave it to me. For me, that really touched my heart when she did that. So, those little things I've had, I think throughout his schooling, where people have shown me that courtesy, if you will, or, have really said, no, you know what, I will take a picture, I will be there, I will let you know how he did, and that has always made me feel good. So yeah, I mean, I've not been there for some of the things that I would have liked to be there, but then some of my other friends who are working outside the house couldn't go for their kids' field trips for that reason. So I guess that's there too.
Right. Deepa, I was one of those parents who went to very few field trips because I was working as well. So, as you were talking about those parents who couldn't go, I was like, yeah, me too. Different reason, but yes,
Correct. Yeah.
then you have to improvise and do those things. But that was such a sweet story. And I know you talked about how, we didn't have extended family. Being immigrants, that's one of the things you typically lose out on, having extended families close to you. So how, what kind of community support or what kind of support systems did you have at that time?
I think in the beginning, I think this is everybody, not just me, is we hesitate to ask for help. I think that's our biggest, either we want to do it all or we're not sure how it's going to be received. And what if the other person says no? Or, you have all these scenarios that you either overthink it. And so what happened was I had to take 2 steps back and I would say, okay, if I was on the other side and I wanted to help, but I didn't know how without, offending the person, or so I would put myself in the other person's shoes and say, what would it be? And I said, well, easiest would be is to say, hey, can you help me with, and whatever that help would be. And once I said it out loud and asked for, whatever the help was needed, I found people were more than willing to help. I would still drive him, but I would, if it was snowing really bad, if I saw another mom walking her, hey, can you walk her into the classroom or, wherever he needed to go? And he would be more than happy to do it. But I think it is that you have to get over that hump of, okay to ask.
So Deepa, you're a relatively new mom, like with a young child, and you've been married by that time for around 10 years, by the time the disease has progressed a little. And 10 years is a long time to be married, but it's still only 10 years. And then you throw in a disease like this. Did you feel that as a result of it, it put a little more strain on your marriage? And how did you cope with some of those things that came with the added complexity of, a debilitating disease, so to speak?
I think one big thing you have to do is communicate. If you don't, I think that's where you fall short. And I've been fortunate enough with Dave where we can talk about anything. also another advantage is he's a physician, so he understands. He is not afraid of any of the things that go with a debilitating disease. My mother had a difficult time when I was doing IV medications, or, it's different when you're not a physician. None of those things scared him, or, he was comfortable with all of that. In fact, he would explain some of the things to me. So I would say that was an advantage that we had. Of course, there were problems. I couldn't walk. He was building his career. And I was working sporadically because along with the disease, like anybody else, I wanted to work, but I had my limitations. I have a child that I need to care for. Um, you know, Still have to cook meals, and he is on call, like I said, building his career, and here I am. So something had to give. I went from working full-time to part-time. And then I was like struggling with that too, and having a child at home. So I had to make that decision. Okay, what is more important at this point? And I said, okay, you know what? If I have to preserve my sanity, the marriage, take care of my child, I have to step back and not work. And it was a little bit hard for me at that time because all my friends were working, and I was the one who had to take that decision. And I said, you know what? Yes, this is, these are my limitations. I better recognize it. And so I did. And, life was a little bit easier for me as a result of that. Otherwise, every time we argued about something, or we always came back to what is important to us, and how can we make this work. And we had to come up with creative solutions. We had to. So we would, okay, if we cannot do it the usual way, what's a creative solution for it? So when people talk about thinking outside the box, my whole life has been living outside the box.
So, Deepa, I have to ask you this, and again, I'm asked you for forgiveness before I ask you the question. Especially in the Indian cultural context, when wives have to take care of their husbands, it's almost like ye to uski duty hai,
Mm-hmm.
But when husbands are taking care of their wives, it's a very unusual thing, right? If the husband is bringing chai for his wife, or taking or giving her a foot massage, it's not as typical, especially from our generation. Now of course things are changing, and I will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even in our generation, things had started changing almost, but it's not fully there.
Mm-hmm.
So did you ever see people giving you that judgmental eye where, oh, look at her, like, poor Dave?
I would bring it up to Dave, and he would be like, if I don't have an issue with it, why does it bother you? That would be always, his thing. We had just walked on like a beach or a something, and then we were all getting back in our cars to, this is with a bunch of friends, and kids were little, everybody was getting in the cars, and we were all heading back. I could not put on my own shoes, like I was struggling with it, and Dave just came, picked my foot up, and he was putting the shoe on, and he put the shoe on, and I stood up, and it came off again. And, so I had to sit back down, and he helped me again. And this happened like 3 times. And from the corner of my eye, I saw one of his, friends just kind of roll his eyes. Like, that's like 3 times he's bent down to, tighten your shoe. Now, everybody else, no one no one noticed it, or I noticed that little bit of eye rolling. And I came back and I told Dave, and he's like, big deal. They can roll their eyes all they want, but if you're going to fall as a result of your shoe not being on right, I would rather you put it on right. So yeah, I mean, I've seen that, but you have to let it roll off your back.
So Deepa, at this stage, the disease is progressing, but you've developed the ability to cope with the progress, and you've also started participating in the community, especially as far as MS goes. So can you tell me a little bit about that, and what did you do and how did you do that?
Sure. So I decided, that I wanted to be a little more proactive and figure out how I can meet other people with MS. Like I always say, one mom always gets enough what another mom is going through, whatever age your kids are. So likewise, I wanted to meet other people with MS. The first time I visited the MS support group, um, I was myself using a cane intermittently. And when I got tired, and when I went to this MS group, I saw a couple of wheelchairs, people in wheelchairs. And it took me aback, and I thought, is this going to be my future? I don't know. Should I, go to this group? And I turned around and I left. Um, and when I came back home, I, had to sit with myself and say, okay, you know what? It's okay. You have to face your fears. You have to go and you have to talk. Maybe you'll meet some, other people with MS and connect. So the following month, I went for the meeting, and sure enough, I met folks with MS, different age groups, different backgrounds, but everybody having this diagnosis of MS, and we connected. So I was a participant for many years and took on a leadership role um, subsequently. So I began to lead the MS support group. And what we did was I had different speakers come in and talk to us and how to deal in this journey of MS. So whether it was equestrian therapy, where, for people who can't walk, getting on horses and trying to ride, whether it was acupuncture, yoga, meditation, physical therapy, or any other alternative therapy, or a physician coming and talking to us, dealing with other illnesses in conjunction with MS. So it was very interesting. So did all of that. And, I think that you have to learn to be proactive when you um, get a diagnosis, instead of asking the question, why me? I have learned to say, try me, because I'm like, okay, I've got to flip that script. I'm like, if I get into the why me question, I'm not going to get anywhere. And then, as Varun was also growing older, he realized that he wanted to be a part of MS and wanting to do something. MS, the National MS Society had an MS walk in our region. And Varun said, I want to create a team for you, Mom. And he contacted our friends, our neighbors, his friends, um, people of the community, and uh, a team. And he just named it Team Deepa, and that was born. So we do T-shirts every year which says Team Deepa on it. And my friends and who are now like my family, and they all come together and we walk. Um, and I have friends coming in from Toronto, and I now have their daughter who lives in Boston, who travels from Boston to be part of Team Deepa. And it's very humbling for me to see all this love and support. I have people who walk virtually, who cannot be there, physically, but they walk virtually. And it's, whenever I see that, I'm thankful that they are walking for me when I can't do that. And we fundraise, and actually I think 2 years in a row Varun was one of the highest fundraisers, not the highest but one of the highest fundraisers. And it's just really nice that I see everybody come out, and walk for me and support me in this. Like I said, I'm always grateful for these little blessings that I have in my life.
You've almost learned how to cope with MS, and you're working through that, and you're still trying to lead as quote unquote normal a life as you can with this disease. And then the diagnosis of ovarian cancer stage 3 hits you. You've also spoken about how, below the waist you have, there's sparks of a sensation, not all the time. What was it that triggered the diagnosis? How did you get it? And then we'll speak about, what went through your mind when you got it. I mean, you already have A, and now you have B, which puts A, which is so huge, on the back burner. I mean, there's so many things happening and being thrown at you at the same time. So can you take us through that?
Yeah, so, our high school friends, which you're part of, and we were about 7 or 8 of us here in the US. And, we'd been talking to each other, had reconnected because of WhatsApp and Facebook and all of this. And, after phone calls and all our messages, we wanted to meet each other. So we had decided, everybody was at that point in their lives where the kids were a little bit older, and we wanted to make this effort to meet each other. And I had not met you for, oh my gosh, for I think close to 30 years. And I had not met a couple of others. And so I was excited. I have a friend, Uma, here in Michigan, and because obviously I can't walk, so I was a little hesitant making this trip by myself from here. And she was like, "I'm here. We'll go together." And I was a little more comfortable after that. So when we did, and it was such a fun weekend. We connected and all of this, and obviously everybody saw me not being able to walk. And the question was not like, okay, you can't walk, or poor you. It was like, okay, what can we do to help you? How can we, and so Sonia, one of our school friends, she said, there are different therapies, and I'm going to forward you a couple of them, and why don't you take this up further? So I think one of the treatments was Botox. And so she said, I'm going to forward you the information, and, why don't you follow it up? And I said, okay, I will do that. Came home, and, I was like, okay, I'll do it. But she was a little more persistent, where she sent me an email, hey, have you done anything about it? And I was like, hey, you know what? I've had 2 emails from her. Let me make an appointment and go see a doctor and see what needs to be done. Now, while I did this, that's why I always credit Sonia into helping me get a diagnosis of ovarian cancer, because had she not, I was already at stage 3. I may have never got the diagnosis. So when I went in to get my testings done, and he said, I think you need to go and get a CAT scan, and sooner the better. Now, Dave had gone with me to this physician's office. So he said, well, I've taken the day off. Let's see if we can get you in the hospital today itself, and so you can do the CAT scan. I'm like, okay. I've gone through so much of testing that none of this really bothers me. So I was like, okay, hey, you know what? Might as well just get it done. So we got it done, and Dave has a friend who's a radiologist. So and they plays tennis on Wednesday evenings. It's that clear in my mind that what day it was, and he was, you know, going to go play tennis. So he went to play tennis, and you know, he comes back within half hour, and he has this look on his face, which, you know, now when you're married for so long, you can read, you know, each other's faces. I knew something was off, and now I'm thinking, who is it? You know, is it his family, my family? Is it? Never once have I thought this is concerning me, even though I was the one who did this CAT scan. And I said, what's going on? Who, you know, is it my mom? Is it is there something? And he goes, no, you need to sit down. I'm like, I am sitting down. What, like, tell me what is going on. And he said, you remember the CAT scan we did? And that's when I was like, oh, this is about me. Okay, it's not. So again, there was a thank God. It's not about, okay, it's about me. Maybe the MS something has progressed. And he said, well, we have to go see um, an oncologist because the radiologist thinks there is growth and it could be cancerous. And I'm like, it can't be. It's not going to happen. I already have a diagnosis of MS. It, you know, it cannot be. It just may be something off. And so I was not ready to deal with it. That's how I did. That was my form of dealing with it. But we really made an appointment right away to go see. You know, we had to make a few phone calls because we don't have a gynecological oncologist in our town, small town. So we had to go a little further away. We met my oncologist. He was really a nice guy. And he sat me through, you know, the test, and he said, through this test that tells us we can stage and we can map out. And this is where we are. And I said, what does it mean? And you know, when you hear cancer, we've seen enough movies where cancer equals death, right? I mean, in our minds, that's how we've conditioned. So I'm like, how much time do I have left? First question that comes out of my mouth is how much time? He goes, again, that's not how we do it. We stage it. The next step would be for you to do surgery. And he was very matter of fact, right? I mean, he's a physician. He can't. The minute he said surgery, I'm looking at it. I'm like, do you realize I have MS, can't walk? You're talking about wanting to do surgery and, you know, take away my ovaries, which I was like, thank God I won't have periods anymore. So you can take that away, no problem. But, you know, what does this entail? Surgery and then I'm done, or what? And he said, no, then we followed up with chemo. And he said, because you're in stage 3, it was a lot of information coming at me, and I was not equipped to deal with it. At this point, when he comes back into the room, again, won't forget this, we had a trip planned to Spain. So I look at him and I say, when do we want to do this surgery? And he said, well, as soon as possible. So I'm going to Spain, and I really want to go to Spain. So can we do it after I come back? And he said, well, if you really want to go to Spain, then you should. We had a really wonderful time in Spain, got to see all these places which I, again, would have never had. We were in south of Spain. Came back, and I was now ready for the surgery. And the surgery was probably the hardest thing that I have faced. In the sense, it obviously I had no recollection of the surgery, and I mean, they ask you to count backwards, and that's it. I mean, you're out. And the only thing that I had told Dave was, when I wake up, I want you to be there. So when I was coming to, you're in the recovery room, and then they take you to your hospital room. When I was in the recovery room, I was just coming to, I could hear Dave saying, I know you don't let people back there, but I'm her husband and I promised her that I'm going to be there when she wakes up. I'm like, he's here, I can hear him. So he came and he's like, I'm here. They don't let anybody here, even though I'm a physician, they won't let me. And I just smiled, and I was out of it again. The next one I woke up, I was in the room, and he was there again. So I'm like, okay, he kept his word, he's there. But yes, I was told it was an 8.5-hour surgery, where they went in, there was a complete hysterectomy, and they tried to, they call it debulking, meaning taking out as much as the cancer cells as possible. They did that, and then the next step was, they said you have to recover from the surgery, and we want to start chemo as soon as possible. And they said, within a month. Now, for somebody who's already compromised, meaning your core is weak, you can't walk, and you do a surgery and you have like these 53 stitches, I couldn't even turn in the bed. I'm only laying on my back, and it's been now 12 days, and I'm laying on my back. And Dave came in, I still remember, he said, you have to push yourself. You need to get out of bed. And I was so mad at him when he said that. Like, you have no idea how it hurts. It hurts where I can't even turn. And you want me to sit up? You want me to transfer to a wheelchair? And he said, unless you do that, they're not going to let you go from the hospital. And not only do you need to sit in a wheelchair, get home, we got to get you ready for chemo. So the sooner you leave the hospital, we can move to, phase 2. When you're dealing with cancer comes the hair loss, right? And I began losing the hair. I still remember, I think for a woman, it's harder. I was in the shower. I had cut my hair short. I was in the shower, and maybe 15 days into the chemo, I was in the shower, and I just moved my hair and it started to come out in clumps. I knew it was going to happen, but I think you're not prepared for it. And when it came out, I just began screaming in the shower. And Dave came in because, what happened? He thought I fell or something. And I said, it's my hair. It's my hair, and it's all coming out. And he goes, it's just hair. Don't worry about it. He's like, anybody who knows Dave, he has no hair in his head. Because you and me, we're going to be the same. Hey, he joked about it. He said, listen, there's shampoo, there's conditioner. You don't have to worry about your hair. Don't worry about it. And then, I cut it short and everything. And I was more conscious of it. Again, like I said, it's a woman thing. So I had friends who got me a wig. I had some who got me something called a wiglet, which I never heard of. But, and I got scarves, and, so I tried all these different things. And like I told Dave, I said, now you can date a brunette, a redhead, I didn't go as far as a blonde, but yeah, dark hair, long hair, short hair. Tried all these different wigs. My favorite was this cap with like a, with a little bit of hair in the back. So you just wear this cap and you have a little hair in the back. So if the doorbell would ring, and I would just pop on that hat and, Good.
So Deepa, here you are, you've had your surgery, you've gone through chemo, and then the doctors tell you you're in remission, and you're celebrating that joy of being cancer free at least. And then within a year, you get a diagnosis again that the cancer has returned.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? Can you, if you don't mind, take us through that?
Sure. So I'll tell you, like, and this is how I always envision is I'm holding my hands in a boxing ring, and my opponents have changed. First it was MS and now it's cancer. So I thought I had a knockout and knock cancer, and and here I turn my back, and I'm celebrating, and how they count down 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm like, okay, got it, I'm at 8, 2 more, and hey, walk, and here it is, cancer stood up again. So I had just put my hands down, taken a breather, given my hands a rest, and I've got to put my hands back up again. It's hard to do, but I have, again, the support of family and friends who are cheering me on and saying, you can do this, you can do this. Having said that, it was very difficult. We were going to New York to, I was meeting another school friend of mine, and we're in the hotel, and both Dave and me, we've just cried our eyes out because we've got this diagnosis, and we know this means, and I hate to talk about um, life expectancy because really that's not in our hands. My mother always says, don't talk like that. It's not in your hands, it's not in anybody's. You live your life, and when you have to go, you have to go. That's just it. But I pressed my doctor and I said, what do you think this means for me? And he said, you always talk about your son going into med school. He told me you'll see him get into med school, but I don't know if you'll see him graduate. And that just was too much for me to take in. And we were in that hotel room, I'll never forget, and crying. That is, when people are talking, making plans for retirement, people are talking about, when my grandkids come, or when my daughter gets married, or when, and that famous question of where do you see yourself 5 years from now? No answer for it. So I am actually doing what is everybody tells you, live in the moment. And so I am practicing that.
One of the things I've always noticed about you, having known you for such a long time, you're such an epitome of gratitude and grace, and you have such a wonderful sense of humor through all of this, right? Where do you draw that kind of strength and grace from? I'm always amazed by it, and I'm always kind of wonderstruck by it. So I have to ask you to comment on that a little bit.
Really, through my journey, my biggest rock has been Dave. Whether emotionally, whether of course physically, he's been there, solid. Like he hasn't moved, and for me that is just knowing that he's there, that if I can, if there is something that I need to share, if I need an opinion, if I need anything, he's there. Even if it is, something I want to say against him, there's times that I have told him about it, and I say, I don't know if it's, this is crazy, I want to complain about you and I'm complaining to you about. But for me, my dad, he's no more now. but I still have my conversations with him. For us at our house with Varun, Dev, and me, humor has been huge. Um, and that is what gets us by. Um, nobody wants to hang out with someone who's always crying and, miserable about it. Again, I think um, one of, I had read early on Michael J. Fox's book on how he dealt with his Parkinson's. And in that, he had said, that he had no control over his Parkinson's diagnosis, which, I didn't have. I mean, it came my way. But then all the other decisions and choices he had control over. And, he could make those choices. I thought, oh, what a wonderful way of looking at it. And I thought, yes, that's what I'm going to adapt. I'm a big reader, so somewhere else I had read that you can be bitter about what life throws your way, or you can get better at that and seek out different ways to deal with it. And that's what I've tried to do. My mother is very simple and has really told me that um, doing some form of meditation, doing pranayama, um, will kind of um, keep my demons at bay. And she said it'll keep you grounded. And gratitude days, the gratitude for me is, okay, thank you, I'm alive, I'm breathing. That's as far as I can go with the gratitude. But then there are other days when I am truly, truly grateful for everything that I have in life. It is, at the end of the day, I always say this, कि जिंदगी और कुछ नहीं है, तेरी मेरी कहानी है. I am the heroine of my own story, and everybody around me is that supporting cast. I sometimes take 2 steps back and watch it as a movie, and I'm rooting for myself. I'm like, you're going to go through this, you're going to make it through. So this is my story, and hopefully it'll end on a high note.
I know you and Dave also are very fond of traveling, and you travel quite a bit. How do you manage that and fit that into your schedule? And you have a scooter. Is it accessible everywhere? Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Sure. So again, we're fortunate that we're here in the US, which is handicap accessible. Yay for that. So we already know that anywhere we go in the US, Canada, it's going to be accessible. And then, we would go to maybe the Caribbean or something like that. And sometimes, they wouldn't, there would be a step over there. And they would always eyeball it and go, okay, how's she going to get in over here? And he would look at them and say, well, do you have a scrap piece of wood? And, we would make a makeshift ramp, or not he. And, some of the people from the resort, they would make a makeshift ramp, and, we would make it work. If I had to get on a boat, typically they would say, oh, don't worry about it. And they would just carry me and take me on to the boat. So, we've gone to Jamaica, and we've, gone on a catamaran.
So Deepa, you told me about how you were lifted, and it brought me back to that time. And I've seen, Dave sometimes lift you up, and he's talked to me about how he's had to build his upper body strength so he can lift you up and and take you over a step or take you over 2 steps. And I'm going to ask you a question. I know this sounds really silly, but I first of all, I wish he didn't have to do that and you could walk over the steps yourself.
Of course.
But when I've seen him lift you up, I've thought about the physicality of it and the romance of, having you close to him and he lifting you. And do you see that as sometimes a little bit of a romantic gesture over there?
It depends on where it is. There are times when we just have to do it. And he's just like, let me pick you up and put you on over there because that's the easiest way to do it. I've had going into friends' houses because I am the kind of person who won't sit at home and say, I'm not going to your house because you got 4 steps. I would just be like, I am going to your house. We're going to see how I can get into your house. So we had Ganesh Puja at one of our friends' house, and they just joked about it, and they said Ganpati Bappa Moria and put me in a chair, and 4 guys carried me in. But I mean, with Dave and me, yes, like I said, it depends on where we are. Sometimes, when he's carrying me, I will give him a peck on the cheek, and he'll just roll his eyes like, sure, you picked this time to do this. But yeah, and sometimes it's just like, okay, I gotta do this. And now I have my son who's also 6 foot and muscular and buffed up, so he takes over. We had gone to a friend's house, and she had a party in the basement, and I'm not sure. I think Dave was playing, something was there when Dave wasn't available, and Varun was like, sure, I'll do it. I seen Dad do it. And then, I mean, for him, because he's younger now, it's easier too. He just picks me up, takes me down, no problem. And I said, Varun, was this hard? And saying, no, Mom, you don't weigh that much. It's easy. So yeah, so I have, my 2 yodhas right there with me who are taking care of me at every point.
So, dekhte dekhte, it's been 28 years.
Oh my gosh.
Deepa, this year you will be celebrating your 28th year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Dave are both going to be celebrating milestone birthdays.
Absolutely, yes.
His 60th.
Yeah.
50th. And I wish you both a good, healthy celebration and a lot of success even after.
Yes, thank you so much.
I'm thank you so much for being a part of this program and gracing us in this first season. I can't thank you enough.
No, thank you. I think this is a great initiative on your part, and I know a lot of hard work has gone from your side with logistics, with planning and all of it. So hats off to you. I am learning from you where in spite of having a full-time job, you have taken this on. So I think credit goes to you too.
Thank you again, Deepa. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.